What's up guys, we're shooting another video today. Sorry about the delay. I've been trying to get a wiring video out there for some time now. I finished the Mk2 Golf ABA swap and pretty much immediately handed it over to my friend who I was doing the build for, and it's his daily driver, so I don't really get much time with that car anymore, if any. I ended up getting a new Mk1 rabbit pickup that I was intending on doing a TDI swap on out of a Mk3, so it'd still have the same CE2 wiring in it. I ended up making a decision that was better for me financially. I actually had the old engine out of my Mk2 GTI that I had lying around after swapping a VR6 into the GTI. So I had a 92 8-valve GTI engine that I put into a rabbit pickup. It has CE2 and I have it running, and they use the same wiring technique. I got a lot of good information to share with you guys, so let's get started on the wiring for the ABA swap. So I'm at my house today. I wanted to go over a few things and explain the difference between the CE1 and CE2. It's pretty simple. Basically, if your car is pre-1989 and a half, then it's going to be a CE1 car, most likely, unless you're unlucky like me and got a USA built Golf. And anything that's 1989.5 and newer is going to be a CE2 car. Okay, so here's what the CE2 fuse block looks like. You can see all the relays on the front and then the fuses on the bottom there. But we're not really going to be messing too much with that. What we're going to be messing with is on the back. What we have here is where a bunch of connectors would connect in, and it looks like an absolute mess, but it's actually very organized with all the connectors out of it. You can see that all of the connectors are labeled. See, there's A1, A2, there's B, C, D, and so on. It goes all the way up to Z. Each connector would fit into one of these here slots. Each connector has so many wires on them that go to these pins. All these pins are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and each pin has a different purpose. Now if you go look at the website I linked called A2 Resource and look at the CE2 pin layout, it'll tell you what each one of these pins purpose is, and that makes it really simple to find what wire we need to tap into in order to power this thing with the ignition switch off of your car. I'll go over the wires that we need to have connected into this thing. I only picked up this 1981 Rabbit pickup to do a TDI swap in, and walk you through it real quick. I ended up using a Digifent 1 California engine, so it's not the boosted application. It's a naturally aspirated engine, and even though it does have the G60 valve cover, it's 1.8 head out of my 92 GTI, and it has the ABA block on it. It also has central electric too. I had the engine harness and the fuse box lying around, so I just decided to do the wiring on this engine the same as I did on the 87 Golf ABA swap, and that car has been done for some time now, and it's cruising. It's my friend's daily. Now this one's finished, it's running, and I can go over what has worked for me. And I'm saying that because I kept trying to do a video on the CE1 to CE2 swap, but it's been difficult because I haven't had a CE1 car yet that I have had the opportunity to do an ABA swap on. So unfortunately, I misled some of you, and I apologize, but I want to go over what has worked for me, because I did say that I was going to do a wiring video, and this has worked for me twice now, and I think it's worth sharing, because my car is running, and running how it should. So yeah, I'll get started here. So I just wanted to mention real quick the first 4 essential things that you need to have, and that I'm assuming you already have in order to make this vehicle run with the ABA swap. The first one is going to be the ignition coil. Gotta have that. The engine wiring harness, PCM, ECU, whatever you want to call it. The fuse block, the CE2 fuse block. So we got to make sure you have those things, and I am assuming you already have those. So the tricky part for me was the H plug, which is H1 rather, which is the ignition. It's been tricky on both the Mk2 swap and this one. I don't have the plug. It would normally go right here. I had to make my own little wires or loom or harness, whatever you want to call it. I made them out of spade connectors, female spade connectors, and ran the wires to where they needed to be. Now this is where I could not get the CE1 to CE2 piggyback wiring to work for me. I'm just gonna show you guys what has worked for me now twice, and you're gonna need your own switch. I bought some off of Amazon, and basically I was trying to get the key, the ignition switch here, to work with the car. I don't have a battery in the car right now, but I ended up having to use this little switch here to turn on the ignition, but the key does work the starter. So yeah, I'll explain what I did there. Really simple. It's only 3 wires, you can see. Basically I had to jump pin 2 and pin 4, which are these, the brown and red wire right here. Just ran both of these wires to my switch. When those wires are jumped, the ignition turns on, and that's all I got to do to turn the ignition on. Then I can turn the key and start it. Now the key works, the starter, because I have a wire coming from the black wire off of the ignition switch, which is the same for your CE1 car, going to pin 1 on H1, which is right here. I switched the wire colors. Sorry if that's confusing at all. You can see it connected right here. It's a mess right now. But yeah, here it is, the black wire connecting to this wire. The reason why I did that is because this wire is really stiff and it kept pulling out of the fuse box. So sorry for the confusion, but it is the black wire going from the key or the ignition switch to plug H1 pin 1. Again, really simple, and this is what's worked for me twice now. I'm sorry it's not perfect, but if you want to do your own research after with your CE1 car, I'm sure it'll be pretty easy, because there's an awesome resource I'll leave in the description. It's a Vortex link, and it'll have a step-by-step guide for you guys with the CE1 car. But again, I just wanted to put a video out there with what's worked for me. because I have been trying to get this video out there for some time now. So just to recap, I have power and ground. Y3 is power, coming directly from battery positive. I got Z2 over here, this brown thicker wire, coming directly from battery negative, which is Z2 again. Then I have G1 and G2, which is your engine harness, which I'm assuming you already have plugged into your engine. And we just went over plug H1, which I'm also assuming you have, but if you don't, you can make your own little wiring harness going to it. Again, jump with a switch, pin 2 and pin 4 of plug H1 to turn on your ignition, then run a wire going from plug H1, pin 1, to the black wire on your CE1, ignition switch, and that'll work your starter. You also want to have plug F in there, so yeah, make sure you have that. Pin 1 goes directly to the starter, so yeah, make sure you have that in there. Let's do this yellow plug here. This one's kind of tricky. I actually melted the wire. Yours will not be yellow. I melted the wire because I made the mistake of having the wiring harness on the exhaust while I had the car running. It melted the insulation and shorted the wire, melted the wire all the way up to here. So I had to run my own wire. It was a red and black wire. It can vary, I believe. Even the plug, I think on my ABA in the Mk2, it was a red plug, but I think it's either yellow or red. The wire color, I believe, is normally red and black, red with a black stripe. So yeah, that's gonna be on plug Z1 is what this is, and that's your injector power going directly to the ECU, PCM, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, very, very easy. Continuing on, let's do our fuel. I also did not have this plug right here. You only need one wire. It's plug M, and it's right here. It's a red with yellow stripe wire. Yeah, I just ran a wire from pin 2 on plug M, and I ran it to the old fuse block. You can see here, this is the fuel pump relay on the old fuse blocks. I just pulled the wire out that powers the fuel pump. So you can see I just connected my red and yellow wire to the wire that powers the fuel pump that's already in the car. It was the CIS fuel pump. Usually it's black with green, so that'll be the same wire color CE1 car fuel pump. Hope that makes sense. So that's pin 2 on plug M going to the power wire off of the CE1 CIS fuel pump, and the ignition will power that fuel pump, and your new PCM will now be controlling that fuel pump. Okay, moving on. What else do we need to cover? I hope this is all making sense. It's really, really simple. If you have that website open that I had said to you to have open, which is a2resource.com, this is all so easy. Like, it's very organized, super easy to follow, and really, if you look at it long enough, you won't even need me to tell you what all this is. Let's do these two plugs back here, these blue ones. So if you're running the new gauge cluster, which I haven't mounted it yet. It's right here. These 2 blue plugs power that. So yeah, that's what that is. You can see I have a little jumper here as well, which is relevant because you need to jump these 2 pins, which are D8. So plug D, pin 8 is what I mean by that, to E2. So D8 to E2, make a little jumper wire. I made mine out of like some scrap wire and 2 female spade connectors. Jump those, and then that will power your gauge cluster. You'll have a fully functioning gauge cluster. That's pretty much it. You'd have a running car at that point. That's your fuel, your ignition, you know, you even got your gauge cluster. I got this wire right here for my alternator. It's A2 pin 1. That might be different on your car. Again, you know, you got to figure out exactly what your car is and find. It's not going to be totally the same for you guys. You know, figure out what you need. You know, run a wire to, like, I needed the exciter wire for my alternator, and I just ran a wire to the fuse block, and it works now. The alternator's working. You know, I think that's just about it, really. You know, I can show you guys it running real quick. Okay, so I just hooked up my battery. So I'm going to show you guys that this does work, assuming all my wires are still in there. So here I have my little switch. This is jumping pin 2 and 4 on plug H1. Here we are. Here's my gauge cluster. You can hear the fuel pump working. That comes from pin 2 of plug M right there. Here's the key. Turns on the old ignition for some reason, but make sure I'm not in gear. But yeah, start her up. So there, it's just my engine being a pile, but you can see it's running, and it works all off of these plugs. And again, you know, quick recap, we have power and ground. Okay, let me turn this noisy thing off. Turn on ignition. So power and ground. This is Y3 coming directly from battery positive. I got plug Z2, battery negative, you know, wire running directly from battery negative terminal. Then we got our plug F, the whole connector. We got plug G1, G2, also need to have the whole connector. That's your engine harness. Then again, the plug H1, I jumped pin 2 and 4 with the switch off of Amazon, 20 amp switch. I didn't even run a fuse. I don't think I really need to, but you might want to throw like a 15 amp fuse on it or something. Then I got pin 1. I got the black wire from the ignition going directly to pin 1 on plug H1. That'll work your starter. Then I got plug Z1. This is your ignition power or constant power to the PCM. Then the blue guys here power the gauge cluster over here. You can see the clock's working. It's totally, you know, ignition on, ignition off. It's working. I got this jumper going from D8 to D2 or E2, D8 to E2, which powers these wires going to the cluster. Then fuel, I got plug M, pin 2 going to the power off of the old fuse box. I pulled the wire off of the relay connector and connected my little wire, my little red and yellow wire So I just connected that to the green with black stripe wire, which is the same on a CE1 car. Usually is what I read according to the directions on Vortex. And I think that's just about it to get the car running. Please, if you guys have any questions, ask me. I have this thing pretty much memorized at this point, and you will too, going through and doing the swap for yourself. If you just keep an eye on A2 resource, look at the pinout, familiarize yourself, and stay with it. Keep working on it. Again, this is just what's worked for me. I really wish I had a video with the whole thing working. Last time on the Mk2, the switch kept burning up. The ignition switch even burnt up. I did something horribly wrong. I actually figured it out though. The car's ripping. It says daily. So, and this, none of the wires are hot or anything. I'm pretty confident. I'm ready to drive this thing around once I get an exhaust on it. And yeah, I really hope this helps someone. I hope it's sufficient. I know not a lot of people watch my videos, but hopefully I help someone out there with the wiring. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm glad to have this video out of the way, and I can start a new build and take you guys along with me, hopefully. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys soon, hopefully. Peace.